Hi Capricorn, welcome to your July 2024 horoscope. July has a lot going on, not necessarily in terms of super intense astrological aspects, but more in the sense that there is just a lot happening. There are only a handful of days where there isn't some sort of aspect or conversations between the planets. A lot of these aspects are mostly sextiles and trines with Neptune, with Saturn, and with Uranus. But for the sake of this horoscope, so that we're not here for 2 hours, I'm only going to point out the most important ones and the ones that you might feel at the most intensity. All of that being said, if there happens to be a day in the month of July that you are feeling something, you are working through something, and I haven't mentioned it here in this horoscope, that is definitely valid. There might be something else happening that I didn't mention, or there might not be anything happening. There might just be some residue from the other aspects that's coming up for you. I would encourage you through all of this to return back to your practices, return back to the practices that allow you to calm down, to ground yourself, and also to be introspective, to allow you to understand what you're feeling and what that specific feeling or situation is maybe trying to teach you as well. One of the big astrology transits that we definitely need to talk about happens on July 2nd, and that is Neptune going retrograde. For you Capricorn, Neptune is going retrograde in your third house, and it will stay retrograde until the end of this year, until December 2024. Neptune has been in your third house since 2011, so for quite a while now, and it might have been teaching you lessons around bringing compassion into your way of communication. It might be adding an element of spirituality or an element of getting in touch with more the ethereal way of communicating. And it might especially have been highlighting for you any dreams that you have around the local community that you are a part of, any dreams that you've had in regards to your neighbors, your relationships with your neighbors, and perhaps any of these higher, loftier goals or dreams that you've had with your siblings, for example. And now that Neptune is retrograde, you might be sort of reconsidering all of the steps in that area in your life, all of the things that have happened, the steps that you have taken since 2011, and just re-examining them. When Neptune goes retrograde, and actually when any planet goes retrograde, we usually turn that energy more internally, and we just examine how we've been dealing with it instead of necessarily taking actions around those themes. So as I'm recommending to all of the zodiac signs, make sure that you have a practice that allows you to reflect, take the time and the space to reflect. And then once Neptune goes retrograde in December, you'll find that any actions you want to take in that area are a little bit easier and are flowing a little bit more. On July 6th, there is a new moon in Cancer happening in your 7th house. So a new moon represents a new beginning. And for you, Capricorn, it might be that you're starting something fresh and something new when it comes to your relationships. And these are one-on-one relationships. It could very much be with a romantic partner, but it could also be with somebody from more like a business setting as well. A couple of days later, on July 10th, we have a really interesting conversation between the Sun and Venus and Saturn and Neptune. And even though they are both quite a few degrees away from each other, they are forming aspects on the same day, which to me feels quite special. I think it reminds all of us that we cannot look at one aspect or one transit as separate from the rest. It's all very much connected. And the fact that the Sun and Venus in your 7th house are having this conversation with Saturn and Neptune in your 3rd house is a really, really interesting and yummy combination to talk about. So what is this aspect? Let me tell you, because I don't think I've told you yet. So the Sun is trining Saturn and Venus is trining Neptune. And both Saturn and Neptune are in your 3rd house, and the Sun and Venus are in your 7th house. And for you specifically, Capricorn, the way that this could manifest is that somebody you know, somebody that you have a close relationship with, could be making it easier for you to communicate, could be giving you some sort of opportunities to teach or to do a speaking engagement, or could be giving you an opportunity to write and to express your thoughts and your feelings. So pay very specific attention around this date as to what is coming from your dear colleague, your dear partner, your business partner, or your dear romantic partner as well. A day later, on July 11th, Venus enters Leo, or your 8th house. And if you remember from last month, Pluto has gone retrograde and it's now at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So when Venus enters the sign of Leo, it also opposes Pluto. Later in the month, when the Sun also enters Leo, it will also oppose Pluto. So it's safe to say that July has quite a bit of this Plutonian theme happening. Pluto, remember, Capricorn, is in your 2nd house right now. And with this opposition earlier in the month with Venus and later in the month with the Sun, you might feel like you are a bit torn, and there are 2 things that are coming head to head. And that theme for you specifically is around your own safety and security. And with Pluto being involved, it's all about where you are giving your power away for your safety and security. Are you allowing yourself to bond with others, to rely on others, to be dependent on others to the point where you're not able to stand in your own power, you're not able to provide for yourself, you're cutting yourself short in a way and being dependent on somebody else? Versus, where is that fine line between providing for yourself, feeling powerful, independent, capable, but then blocking yourself from also real connection and real intimacy, and also the wonderful things that can come about when you are dependent on somebody else. So it's really about this fine balance between how much do I stand in my own shoes, take care of myself, versus how much do I allow myself to be in this vulnerable, dependent position with others. One of the other strongest transits happens on the 14th of July, and this is the conjunction between Mars and Uranus. For you, Capricorn, this is happening in your 5th house. So you might find yourself especially explosive and passionate when it comes to your hobbies and to the things that you do for fun. It could be that you have a random hobby, a random interest in something that just comes out of nowhere and you pursue it with all the passion and fervor. It could be that you are all of a sudden out there visiting parties and hanging out with people in a way that you never were before. But it could be also really asserting yourself and asserting your own uniqueness when it comes to your own self-expression. The 5th house does represent sort of our inner child and getting in touch with that playful side of ourselves. And when I see Mars and Uranus in your 5th house and them being conjunct, I really see you as getting in touch with those weird things that you used to love as a child that now you've stopped doing because you're worried that others will judge you for it. But this Mars and Uranus conjunction, you are loud and proud. You're not afraid to do those things that you enjoy, even if it might make you seem a bit weird to others and it might make you stand out a bit. On July 20th, Mars enters Gemini, or your 6th house. With Mars entering Gemini, you might feel a bit more of this scattered energy. You might feel much more driven to do things, especially after the slower Mars and Taurus transit. But be careful that you don't overextend yourself. The jump from sort of Mars and Taurus, which is slow and steady, taking time to rest, to Gemini can be sudden. Because Gemini is like, not only let's do things, but let's do 10,000 things at the same time. And for you, Capricorn, because this is happening in your 6th house, be careful not to start 5 different diets during this time. Be careful not to start 5 different morning routines during this time. Be careful not to want to go to 10 different workout classes in one day. And really just see if you can incorporate some of those Mars and Taurus lessons, the slowness, the steadiness, the patience, and see if you can still implement that towards your health and your routine now that Mars is entering your 6th house. A day later, on July 21st, we have a full moon in Capricorn. And sorry to let you know, but this is quite a Plutonian full moon. So the moon is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And even though Pluto is in Aquarius, it's still really close. They're really close with each other. They're about 1 or 2 degrees away from each other. Also, Mars is trining Pluto, so that brings a little bit more of this Plutonian energy during the full moon. Because Pluto is retrograde, it's going to move one last time into Capricorn later this year. And because this full moon is highlighting that final degree of Capricorn, that 29 degree of Capricorn, I do think that this full moon might reveal something. It might give you that missing puzzle piece, that little piece of information that you might have overlooked when Pluto was in Capricorn for the last 20 years. And I don't think this is like a negative piece of information or a shocking piece of information. I do think it will be something pleasant and enjoyable. This is because we have some really nice aspects happening during this full moon. We have Venus sextile Jupiter and the Sun trining Neptune. So Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, because they are involved, I do think that this piece of information, this revelation during the full moon is something that will feel more like the missing puzzle piece that makes it all make sense. That makes the transit of Pluto and Capricorn from the last 20 years make sense. It's you understand why it had to happen the way it happened and how it has led to the beautiful human being that you are today. And specifically for you, Capricorn, Pluto was in your 1st house for 20 years. So for you especially, you might be getting that missing puzzle piece, that little snippet of information that you missed, that you overlooked, surrounding your own power and your own leadership skills. It's the next day on the 22nd that the Sun enters Leo and also opposes Pluto. I do think that the fact that this opposition happens the day after the full moon, that it will sort of amplify the full moon or at least draw it out. So it's not just a crescendo on the 21st, but it might feel like the crescendo stays for longer or maybe happens on the 22nd instead of the 21st. Pay attention to what happened when Venus opposed Pluto earlier in the month, because you might find that the same types of themes are coming up on the 22nd. And the final transit that I want to have a chat about, Capricorn, is the Sun sextiling Mars. This is happening on July 25th, and it's highlighting your 8th and your 6th house. The way I see this playing out for you, Capricorn, is that the effort you've been putting to solidify your routine, to solidify your health regime, to put in the effort to improve your health is making it easier for you to be vulnerable and have more meaningful and deeper relationships with others. Obviously when we all feel good, when we get our sleep, when we feel healthy and strong, we're able to show up as better partners. We're able to share with others more easily how we're feeling and how we're doing. And that can, as a result, form stronger bonds. So overall, Capricorn, I hope you're excited for July. It's a really good time to communicate, to focus on your speech, and maybe if there's anything around the way you speak, the way you communicate with others that perhaps you would like to change. And then of course your health and your routine is also another big focus this month as well. And don't forget that during all of July, Pluto in your second house is challenging you to consider where you're giving your power away for the sake of safety and security. Pluto is hoping that you can find that power within yourself, that you can finally feel powerful and capable of leading your own life, of giving yourself the safety and security that you desire. Before you go, Capricorn, I just wanted to share one last thing. I am doing a giveaway. When we reach 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'm giving one free reading to one of you. So make sure you subscribe. Thanks for joining me, Capricorn, and I hope to see you again soon.